I really do believe that when we're born, we, in every single moment, have a choice to create a worldview about life or to simply follow the world belief or the personal belief that we were given or that we grew up in as we were born. In general, I believe that when you're born into a world or cultural story, like we all are, and you hold to that and you don't allow it to change, grow, shift, that it really puts us in a bubble. And that bubble has been there to survive. That bubble has been there to get through. That bubble has been there because generations ahead of us, behind us, have lived according to that. And it even grew a world story to encompass something bigger and greater. It's also our responsibility to grow and shift that as well. Because if not, something happens outside of that worldview, outside of that story that we can't comprehend or understand or make any sense of, we put our head in the sand and forget it doesn't exist. We just pretend it doesn't exist. Or the other option is, like I said, we actually create and we cultivate a worldview and a world story. That, perhaps, unlike our family or even our siblings, leaves us for a while being very alone because we have an understanding or a view, a story of life that doesn't match anyone else's until we find our tribe, that is. That is why I'm hoping you're here today, beginning to find your tribe, perhaps me. Or perhaps it's why I'm here today, looking for my tribe, perhaps you. And I'm here in part to share my life view and my life story, but not as a story. I'm here today, or at least you're here today finding me on my website because this website encapsulates parts and pieces of my life as it's grown and it has changed. And it's this distillation of insights, perspectives, and views that has enabled me to not just survive through life, but really thrive through life. Insights and growths and possibilities to really be these children of God, right? A child of the divine, if you will, and to live into that potential. And that's ultimately where I want to begin. Honestly, the one thing that drives me and pushes me since as far back as I can remember, it's not just personal growth, the human potential. Who we are, like who our design or what our design really is. And that's beyond what we can do, but who we are in our being. And so many life pieces come into this. It's going to be too hard to share here in this moment. But I do believe humanity is on this growth, on this journey of evolution. And the next stage, my worldview, involves this level or understanding of group coherence, that we come together, we really live into oneness. But to do that, we really need self-coherence first. And self-coherence, in my understanding, is sovereignty, and understanding that we can live and operate on our own. We can live beyond our traumas, that we invited our traumas in to grow and to move us. I believe in the integration of life, that we don't need to create these kind of weird, odd shifting things to teach us things about life. Life is teaching us all the time. So it's not so much coaching that aspect, but understanding and living into the integration of what's happening in our life. So we can have a viewpoint and have an understanding, have resolve for the moments in our life. Presence, connection, surrender, that's all showing up to the now. Surrender is a huge piece of my life. This is what I call radical acceptance, and understanding that any given moment, why I was making this video just a few minutes ago and ants started crawling all over me, to have an acceptance of what that is, that I needed to change literally where I was sitting on the ground to talk to you. And so here we are. Sovereignty, surrender, integration, and the last cornerstone of my work is embodiment. Embodiment is understanding that the mind is here to serve the heart, if you will, or that masculine can serve the feminine. Not that males serve females in such a direct way, although we do, but that we're also here to understand our human nature and how the mind supports that. That embodiment is actually getting clear on the knowingness, the intuition, the wisdom that happens in my viscera, in my soma, and being able to follow that and surrender into that as a consciousness or as a knowing beyond what my mind thinks it knows. So if some of these concepts sound interesting to you and fall in line with you, it leaves me to really the final piece I wanted to share today. What's this all about? What is this all about? And this isn't quite the existential, like what's the meaning of life? But what are we here doing right now? And I call this the Karate Kid moment. In Karate Kid, where, the kid was painting a fence, waxing car, wax on, wax off. And all the while he's learning these things, but really behind the scenes, he's learning karate. He's learning something different. And that's what I feel we're doing in this life. Why do we deal with suffering? Why do we deal with hard relationships? Why do we deal with what even success is, much less abundance of money? All of these things are less important. I don't think it's quite so much that you got to have the big car, the big house, or success as culture says it, as culture's world story says it. But that we're learning our limitless nature. We're learning our ability to be a child of God. We're learning freedom. We're learning wholeness. We're learning completeness. And in that, we get to plug into a larger, I hesitate saying matrix, but a larger group resonance to really fulfill these next and growing stages of what humanity is. And that we get to come into wholeness. We get to come into oneness. And I often use the human body as an analogy. Liver's going to be a liver. Spleen is going to be a spleen. Thomas is going to be a Thomas. You've got to be a you. And together, we have these parts and pieces that come into an interdependence, and we grow into something amazing. We self-organize by following our deepest Jewish nature and really knowing and distilling what that is. Anyway, I hope this interests you. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for listening. Dive into that website. Shoot me any questions you've got. I'd love to talk to you more about all the things I do. We'll talk to you down the line.